All right, on the phone right now, we have Richard Kind, the star of Sharknado 2. Probably the best of all the Sharknado movies, only because you're in it. You own that movie. Absolutely.
It is the Godfather 2 of the Sharknado movies.
It is. It is. Actually, I love the Sharknado movies. I think they're hilarious. They're like the Airplane and the Naked Gun movies, the Zucker brothers movies.
I've only seen the one. So what happened was they lost the guy who was supposed to do it. A friend of mine knew the producer, mentioned my name. She calls me. She says, "Do you want to do it?" I said, "Yes." They go, "Okay." And I went and did it.
There.
Never even read a script.
Simple as that. Simple as that.
That's how I get my jobs.
Yeah. You are a guy who's constantly working, because we're talking like hundreds of movies, television shows. I'm not.
Yes, I should be much wealthier than I am.
Right. Well, that's kind of like the show on Sunday at the Wilbur Theater, Conversation with Richard Kind, How Not to Be Famous.
Yes.
So this
I actually wanted the name to be How Not to Be a Star, but they thought this came off the tongue better. But I just keep working. People think of movie stars as movie stars and that they make huge amounts of money. And when you think about it, there's only about 15 of those in the country. And the rest of us have to work. And we're always working, and that's what we do.
Yeah, I remember reading interviews with Robert Mitchum, and I think Michael Caine also said the same thing. They were like, "I'm an actor. This is my work. I got to keep working." And that's how Michael Caine can do something like Hannah and Her Sisters or Little Voice, and then also do quite possibly the worst Jaws movie. I think it was Jaws: The Revenge. There was the third or fourth one.
Yeah, what's amazing, there's two things I want to say. Number one, I'm astounded that they considered themselves working stiffs, working actors, as opposed to stars, because I think of them as stars. The crazy thing is that Michael Caine won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor and didn't show up because he was working on the Jaws movie. He couldn't get there.
Right.
But as they say, and it was the worst Jaws movie, and he goes, "You call it Jaws 3, I call it my home." Because it bought him a $15 million home.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to work. Everybody's got bills. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but not everybody has a $15 million home.
No.
But nonetheless.
So during this show that's going to be at the Wilbur, is it just you relating stories from your career? Are you going to take questions or anything like that?
Well, I'll tell you what it is, because we've done it a few times, and I always thought it would be fun. It's turned out to be a lot more fun than I ever thought. I think it's fun for the audience, and it's fun for me. There's about a 10-minute sort of a compendium of the stuff that I've done in my career, so that it'll remind you that, oh, my God, I forgot he was in that. It's one of those things. It's, oh, yeah, he did that. Then there is a wonderful, wonderful moderator named David Bianculli, who was used to be the TV critic for the New York Post and then the New York and then the Daily News. And he's a teacher. He's a professor. He wrote a book on the Smothers Brothers. Very literate and wonderful man. And he just moderates the thing. And all he has to do is say, "Richard, what time is it?" And I just go talking and talking and talking. Then after a little bit, I figure, well, you've heard enough about me. I did a play on Broadway this year for about 5 weeks with John Mulaney, and we did stories written by a guy named Simon Rich, a wonderful writer. He was a head writer on Saturday Night Live. He's got about 10 books of short stories. We read those stories, and I read one of the stories because I know that I'm, talking about me, but I'm doing what I think I do best, which is act. So I read the story, and then I do a question and answer with the audience, and that's almost like stand-up. They ask questions, and I just talk, and maybe something will remind me of a story or do whatever. It goes pretty quickly, I like to think. I've even had people who know me and say, "Wow, I never realized that you did that, and I never heard that story." And I tell stories about me, and then if something triggers me, I'll tell a story about different stories that I've heard that I think are funny about theater or movies. And I wish I could say it's planned what stories I'm going to tell, but it's not. Each show is sort of different.
Oh, nice.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stories about like Clint Eastwood I got to work with, or the Coen brothers, or I did an original Sondheim Prince musical, and through that, there's just all sorts of stuff. Working at Second City, there's lots of stuff.
So, are you familiar with that documentary, That Guy Who Was in That Thing?
No, but that could be the name of my autobiography.
Don't take it the wrong way, but you are one of those guys. They talk to all these actors who people know their faces, but not necessarily their names. Like Bruce Davison is one of them, and Robert Joy, and there's a whole bunch of people, and you see them in movies and TV and everywhere, but you can never get their name. And that, so is that,
okay. Yes, that is my life. I've got people come up and say, okay, there's different gradations of that. The first thing is, did I go to school with you? Do you owe me money? Are we related? That's the first one. Are we related? Then you get, oh man, I know your face. Are you famous? And then you say, well, if you have to ask, evidently I'm not famous. And then there are the stories where, and this is like one of those stories. I'm walking down the street with my friend Brian Darcy James, who's a wonderful actor, and we're walking down the street, and some guy stops and goes, "Oh, you're the guy who used to run the porn stand over on 34th Street."
Oh my God!
So that's my favorite. My favorite one. Oh no! One happened recently. I'm walking to the theater about a month or two ago, and I'm walking by, and a woman hits her husband and goes, "Oh, there's that actor." That's literally what she said. "Oh, there's that actor." Like she couldn't remember my name, but she was very excited, and her husband got hit.
Would you say the people recognize you the most from, say, Spin City? Because that was such a huge TV show. No, that's one thing I start to talk about in the thing. Wherever you're from, or however old you are, is what you recognize me from. So you get people on either coast will recognize me from either Spin City or Curb Your Enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. Kids will recognize me from either Big Mouth or Inside Out. You got Jews who will recognize me from either Serious Man or Curb. Then you got the weirdos who recognize me from Stargate or from any other. There are Clifford. There's the weird ones. Or people who go, young people who were married, or older people, now middle-aged people, who knew me from Mad About You. It matters where you are geographically and age-wise. You've worked with so many different people, and you tell stories about them in your show. But what is maybe one person who you may have had a preconceived notion about, or you may have heard that they were difficult, and it ended up being the complete opposite of that? I
never think about a person being difficult, and with the exception of one person who I'm not going to mention, everybody I've worked with has been great. Christopher Walken was the weirdest one because we were in the makeup trailer, and hearing him talk was as weird as the intonations of his voice. And then while we were doing a scene, he's walking. We're walking. Walking, it's called the walk and talk, and the camera's following us. And as he's walking and speaking, I'm in the scene, but in my head, I'm looking at him going, really? That's how you're going to say the line? That's your choice. And then I saw him on screen, and I went, oh, my God. He's so brilliant. And I think I'm a very literal actor. I think that I talk as a character in much the way that I talk in real life. Well, I think Chris Walken does the same thing. The only thing is, in real life, he sounds weird. And when he acts, he sounds weird. And it's fantastic. It's mesmerizing. I was astounded by it. So that was really the wildest thing. Early on, very early on, I was a kid. I was, late 20s. And I did a reading at my house with Demi Moore. She wasn't famous then, and I remember her doing a reading of this script, and I'm in it, and I couldn't believe how good she was. I just remember, oh my gosh, I believe every word she's saying. She rose above the words, rose above the script. She was great, and different people. I remember Paul Giamatti.
Oh yeah.
will read with him. And I'm looking at him going, oh, my God, he's so good. He was unbelievable. And you just remember those little things.
What was the most challenging role that you can, for you? I don't mean if it was a bad production or anything, but it was one you really had to really dig deep, that you really had to lay it all out there.
I did a play. I don't know whether a lot of people will know the play. They'll know this playwright. It was a Tom Stoppard play called Travesties. And it starts off with a 35-minute monologue and talking about James Joyce and Tristan Tzara, who was creator of the Dada theory, and Lenin was one of the, and I just talk about all of these people being in Switzerland right after World War I. And it was told, it's in an English accent, and it's told in the style almost of James Joyce, and that was a great play. You know, it's one of those plays where you really want to do it again. Oh, I know a play that I did. There was a play called Romance written by David Mamet. It's absolutely hilarious. And it takes place, the first scene takes place I play a judge, and it takes place in a courtroom, but my character is drug-addled. I've taken too many drugs. I'm off my rocker. And every line that I say has nothing to do with the previous line that somebody said. I just speak from the air. So I had to memorize only my lines, and I would count the number of people who talked before I had my next line, because acting is reacting, and I couldn't react to their lines because it had nothing to do with what I was going to say. So all of a sudden I'm going 1, 2, 3, and then comes my line, and I completely went up. I just couldn't remember my line, and nobody on stage could help me because anything I'm saying has nothing to do with what they're thinking or what's going on. And I sat there for about 40 seconds, and they're all looking at me. They're looking at me. And then all of a sudden I went, oh, and I banged my hand on the table, and I said my line. It just came to me. It's like I went through the whole play, through like about 8 lines prior, and then got my line. That was tough.
Wow.
That was a tough one.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, that's that. I can't.
And it's all I want to do again. I want to do that one again, but I don't know whether I'm too old because, your mind sort of doesn't work as well as it did in your youth. And I was fairly old then.
You mentioned you were working in a play with John Mulaney, and I watched the talk show you guys did together. And
yeah, we're going to do 12 more of them.
You guys going to do more?
Yeah, starting on March 12th.
Oh,
we're doing 12 every Wednesday for 12 weeks.
That's awesome because I loved it so much. It was so weird and awkward and funny and everything that all the other talk shows aren't out there.
And can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell we were doing. You say it was great, and I wish I could tell you what was going on. I don't know what I was doing. People say I was good, but I don't know why. I'm terrified of it because I don't know what the whole show is about. I don't know what it is. I just show up, I announce him, and then whatever he says, I go la 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 la. I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, it kind of came out that way at times, which was part of the fun in it for me. It's like, these guys look like they flew off the handle and they're trying to get it back. And that was fun to watch.
We don't know. And there were so many things. The thing I did best on that show was I kept my mouth shut. As you can see, I could talk a lot. And there were times where I just had to say, this is John's show. Let John do it. And then every once in a while during an interview, I'll ask one question just to give John a break, sort of.
Right.
Or if it's going sort of one way or another, then I'll just take it a different way and then let him bring it back. But first of all, if you love John Mulaney, you are correct.
Yeah, he is.
John Mulaney is the greatest.
Yeah.
He, as a performer, he's great. He's only getting better, especially as an actor. He certainly is one of the funniest comic people you'll ever meet. And he's so good. There's goodness to him. He's such a kind, good guy, and he's smart, and he's inquisitive. He's everything I want to be, and I think I am, but he's better at it. He's just great. He's just great.
Are,
Love it.
are there any, TV, a lot of people say we're in the golden age of television. You've done a lot of television. Is there anything that you would...
I was working very heavily in the copper stage of television, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, is there anything out there that you would like to be involved with? Because I know John Mulaney he does work with The Bear, which is such a great show. Is there anything now that you would have an interest in that you would like to be involved in? I
would like to be a lead in Shogun.
I would like to see that.
Me too. Me too. I like doing everything. Are you kidding? The TV nowadays. I was thinking about this. I just won a SAG award for Best Ensemble, and we were really gobsmacked that we won. I couldn't believe it. And Selena Gomez properly gave the speech representing all of us. And when I say I wasn't prepared to speak, I mean, we were not prepared to go up. We were really surprised. And I think after I thought if I were to say something, it would have been every one of these TV shows, had they won, we would have thrown up our arms and gone, of course, they should have won, because each one was better than the next. And we were all good. Did we deserve it? Of course we did. But so did Hacks, and so did the band. They all deserved it.
Yeah.
And then you look at the ensembles of the drama, and then you look at the movies that came out this year. The amount of good work that's going on right now is astounding. Is it a comment on our times? Is it not a backlash, but a reaction to MAGA and things that are just how some people just think of things, that they wear on their sleeve, as opposed to what's intrinsically inside us and makes us think and makes us feel. And I think as artists, we're addressing that right now through our art without even knowing it. I think that's what we're doing. We're trying to say things that we're feeling, and we can't say it politically, or we can't say our opinions. So I think we're turning it into art, and I think that's why things. The other thing is you take like a novel like Shogun, which is very dense. You can take your time, and some people are saying, I watched the first 2 episodes, I really didn't get it. And then somebody else says, oh my God, it was the most brilliant thing on TV. I think that's where genius comes from. If somebody can say, I didn't like it, and another person at the same time in the same room can say, this is the best thing I've ever seen, that takes great genius.
Yeah. I mean, is that what you want as an actor? Because I know that's something here in radio where it's like,
I want a paycheck.
That's right. You just want to work. But it's the reaction, though. Like in radio, it's like, well, they hated it or they loved it. But that's way better than them not saying anything at all about it. And is that the same thing in acting? You want some kind of reaction.
I want a reaction, and I'll take a bad reaction. I didn't like your choices. I didn't like what I was watching. But I made a choice. I affected you.
Yeah.
I made you feel.
Yeah.
And back in the 80s, we used to watch Facts of Life or Full House, and you either liked it or you didn't. But you didn't feel anything. It was just a bomb. It was like, it was like a soft massage. We sort of want to, rub and get deep in those muscles.
Right.
I think that's what we're trying to do. I think that's what we all would like to do, or unless you really do live up to the punchline that I said, which was we want a paycheck. No, of course we don't. We want to make an effect. I want to be. The 2 things that I'm most proud of are a movie called The Serious Man and Inside Out. Those are spectacular movies that really resonate, and you see a few times, and each time you get something new out of it. That to me that's great. I love that.
Yeah,
love it.
All right. Well, Richard Kind, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Sunday, the Wilbur Theater in Boston. It's a conversation with Richard Kind, how not to be famous.
And you're going to miss the Oscars. So a lot of people who will want to see something culturally interesting like Richard Kind, are going to miss something culturally interesting like the Oscars. So tape the Oscars, fast forward through the commercials, and come see me.
There you go.
By the time my show is over, you'll be able to see the Oscars in full by the time it's over and skip the commercials.
There he is, Richard Kind, planning out your Sunday evening already. Well,
Yep.
I appreciate it. Richard, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.